Get ready for an unfair advantage over your competition. This is the Sales Edge podcast, where globally recognized sales expert and trainer Joe Peachy helps you sharpen your skills for booking more appointments and closing more deals. And now, here's your host, Joe Peachy.
Hey team, this is Joe Peachy of The Sales Edge on podcast number 66. And Peachy & Peachy sponsors the Sales Edge. Peachy & Peachy is a full-service training, speaking, consulting company that helps their clients achieve more, get most out of their productivity, get in front of their target market. You know, we would appreciate if you could help us out here. Global Gurus contacted us. For some of you may have had a hard time getting on because the site went down. If you were able to register and vote for Joe Peachy in the sales division, thank you. We're humbled by that. If you had a hard time doing it, would you do me a favor? Go back on and vote for Joe Peachy on globalgurus.org in the sales division. We'd appreciate that. Also, feel free to send us any information you'd like to Joe at PICIANDPICI.com or call Joe for a complimentary cup of Joe, 407-947-2590. You can agree, disagree, give us suggestions. We would appreciate that. Today, we're going to get started. We have a surprise, a treat. Dawn is back. She has an incredible message for you, and so I'm going to turn this over to Dawn. Take it away.
Hey, how you doing? Are you working to build a business while raising children? You know, it's really funny. Joe and I get folks in the coaching studio, and we work with them on the skills, and we work with them on sales and marketing and this and that, and putting together their messaging and all the strategies. And yet many times it boils down to, well, now how do I implement this? Because I work from home, because I've got kids, because my business is done between 5 and in the afternoon and 8 o'clock at night because I'm in financial services, or I work weekends because I'm in real estate. Perhaps they're building a direct sales or network marketing business. Some folks that come to us have an online, some sort of service that they sell online. They're franchise owners, coaches. If you are in these shoes where you are working to build a business and yet you've got kids, well, Joe and I have been doing this for 30 years. For almost 30 years, we've had children and sometimes have been homeschooling children while we were building a home-based business. And there's so much information out there on being an entrepreneur and all the skill sets, but rarely do I ever hear anybody talking about the nuts and bolts of how you do this when you have children running around the house. So that's what I want to share with you today, because let's face it, it's a whole new ball game, and when you have kids in the mix. And you can find yourself oscillating between feeling guilty because your work from home business takes too much time away from your kids, or you can feel totally frazzled because caring for your kids interferes with the time you think you should be spending on your home-based business. And like I said, Joe and I can identify with you. And to be totally transparent, we've not always been able to find the perfect work and parenting balance, but we've learned a lot over the years, and I think some of these tips might be of value to our listeners. In fact, I was talking to Joe about this. I said, honey, nobody talks about, what it means. Okay, I can have these skills, but now how do I apply them when I'm chasing a 3-year-old around the house? So here are some tips for you, because we want to help you avoid the two biggest extremes. Number one is working all the time and not spending time with your kids, not giving your kids enough attention. And the second one is the other extreme, where you're so involved with your kids that you're not putting enough hours in to be financially successful. And, this is really kind of a crazy thing about how we can oscillate between these two. So the first thing I want to let you know is drop the guilt. Put away the whip and realize that even when we think we might be failing in our being able to be the good parent and the good business owner at the same time, it's interesting in retrospect to be able to see the benefits that having a business and building a business with children was for our children, what it taught our children, even when we felt like we were failing at it. And I can say that sometimes we did. But I'm looking at, we started building a business back in 1992. And we had little kids, and my husband worked during the day, and he worked to build his business nights and weekends, and we traveled, we were here, we were doing that, and it was really, really crazy. And you can feel like, ooh, this is really going to turn our children into monsters or something. You wonder, are these kids going to grow up to be any semblance of normal? And I think there's 5 really big advantages to being a parent that's building a business. Number 1, the first thing that kids learn is that there's no free ride in life. You build a business, it's hard work, it's sacrifice. It means working, crazy hours sometimes. And that success in anything requires work, self-discipline. And what's interesting is our children, we had 2 children, and neither one is an entrepreneur. They don't choose that, which is fine. Probably, they have a good idea there sometimes. But they know how to work. Our kids are great employees because they have ownership mentality. They own their job. They give their boss more than what he's paying for. I mean, it is really gratifying to see that we've raised kids who know how to work and are not afraid of work and are not looking for a free ride. Which brings me to the second point, which is that they become responsible adults. This is the goal of parenting. This is the unwritten goal of parenting. Can I produce kids that will be responsible adults? And our kids are very responsible. And there's a really great book about this. I always love to share some of the great books I've read. And this one's by Bob Barnes, and it's called Ready for Responsibility. And it's how to help your children be ready for responsibility and things that you can do to teach them as they're growing up. So as your children watch you and they watch how hard you work and they watch your dedication and they watch how you deal with your customers and you deal with people, you're teaching them just valuable lessons in life that are going to cause them to grow up to be responsible. Number 3, you're teaching your children by just them watching you build a business, teaches them, and it breaks that poverty mindset. And this is what I mean by that. My grandchildren, we took them down to Disney Springs, and there's a big Lego store there, and they went into the Lego store. And oh my goodness, these Lego sets can be outrageously expensive. And it's just plastic. But anyway, it's a great teaching tool. And they were looking at some of these sets that were relatively expensive. They were up there around $100. And the first thing out of their mouths was, oh, we could never afford that. And I said, why not? Well, we don't have that kind of money. I said, well, you can earn it. You can earn that kind of money. And the phrase I've used with my kids and I'm using with my grandchildren is, you don't have a money problem. You just have an idea problem. You can put that in your phone and tweet it. You don't have a money problem. You just have an idea problem. And it was interesting because when my son was young, I remember we were really fighting our way out of a financial mess. I had been ill, and we had about $250,000 worth of medical debt that we were determined to pay back every dime. And it took 7 years. It took 7 years and a lot of patience on the part of the people we owed money to, doctors and labs and hospitals and things like that. But we paid every penny back. So we didn't have a lot of extra money for the kids for things of this, toys and things they wanted. And he needed a new bicycle. He had outgrown his bicycle. And he saw one in a catalog. And so I sat with him and we plotted out 4 months. You can earn the money for this, son, and you can do this and this and this. And we had it all worked out that he was going to earn this money, and it was going to take about 4 months. And then the bike went on sale after only 3 months, and he was able to get it after only 3 months. But he worked for that bicycle. And it taught him I can have what I want if I'm willing to do enough work to get it. And that is an incredibly important thing to teach our kids. And, of course, he also learned the value of buying things on sale because it saved him so many hours. He could literally see how many hours of time it saved him in working just by finding a good sale. So it breaks the poverty mindset. Number 4, and that is developing a team concept. Working together as a family, as a team. We work together for family goals. Part of what their work was when we were out there building our direct sales business, part of what their work was that they had to know that we couldn't be with them all the time. Part of their work was being with a sitter, or we couldn't be at all their ball games. I can remember sitting with my son and saying, honey, Dad needs me in the business a lot more right now. I have arranged for you to have a ride to all of your practices, all of your games. I just won't be there. We just won't be there for all of them. We're going to miss some, but we have a goal. And we set these goals. And I remember it was, one of them was to take the kids to Busch Gardens, and we hit that goal. And we went to Busch Gardens. We took the kids and had a great time. Another time, we surprised them with going to Disney. And they had a great time there. But there were things along the way. We were able to put them in private school. We were able to do things for them later on that they could see that their work paid off. So the team concept. And finally, there's a great value in hiring your children to work for you. Now, I'm talking about giving them age-appropriate tasks. My dad did this with me. At the end of the year, he had me to sort out his receipts and invoices. My father was an auto mechanic. I certainly couldn't help him in the shop, but he just took his receipts and invoices and stuffed them in a drawer all year long. And my job at the end of the year was just to sort them. This taught me, well, number one, it made me feel really good about myself. It made me feel like, wow, my dad is giving me this important task. But also the idea, I learned that there's this thing called income tax, and I had to pay it, and that I had to be honest about it. We weren't going to hide any of these invoices or receipts. We were going to be honest about it. And it made me feel productive. And what's interesting is it's been proved that adults are 3 times less likely to experience depression if they're productive rather than those who feel unproductive. So by giving our children that ability to be productive, I know I used a vendor table with my kids. We had different things for sale, and I had my kids running a vendor table. The youngest one was 5 and the older one was 9. And I was in the area in case there was, somebody needed more help. But they were selling little Christmas ornaments that are only $1 or $2. They could understand that amount of money. And I gave them a percentage of what they sold from that vendor table. So they weren't just standing there. They were calling out to people, come take a look at these ornaments and all that. And then you have the opportunity to teach them what to do with their money once they've earned it. So it's a very powerful thing. So let's talk about a couple of challenges. Obviously, and I want you to know that I think people think that because you're on a podcast that somehow your life is normal or everything cooperates with your life. But we're at Peachy and Peachy. There's a lot going on behind the scenes when you listen to a podcast of ours. So a couple of the obstacles and how to overcome them. Like, for instance, when you're answering the phone, you have kids in the house and you're saying, give your sister back her toy, leave her alone. Hello, this is Peachy and Peachy. Sometimes it's hard to separate the mindset. But a couple of things you can do to help you with working with your kids. Number one is establish a routine for when you work and for when you're being with the kids. Now, this is a really interesting thing. When you call Peachy and Peachy, it is highly likely that when you talk to my husband, there's another little person in that room, and that little person is our grandson, and he's playing with his Legos, or he's working on his math homework, or he's doing his reading, but he's in that room. He likes to be with his grandfather, and he knows he has to be quiet, and he knows that he has to do his work and let Pop do his. But then when they get done, they have that time every day that they're going to throw the football. And Joe will tell them, I have to make calls till about 4 o'clock, and then the two of them go outside. Joe puts on his tennis shoes and shorts, and they go out and they throw the football for a while. Then Joe gets back in and he works on the phone again. So they have their times. Establish a routine. Number 2, organize your childcare. You're going to need some childcare. And so you want to recruit the most reliable sitters. You want to pay them well and book them in advance. I used to book people 90 days out. If I knew something was coming up, I definitely had my childcare set up. Number 3, teach your kids about being professional. They need to be quiet when you're on the phone. How to greet a client, how to shake hands and look somebody in the eye. I used to work with my kids and say, I'm going to pay you $1 for every person that we meet during this business convention, that you shake their hands and you look them in the eye and you say, how do you do? And you start to have a conversation with them. And they hated it. They absolutely hated it. But later on, my daughter was up for a scholarship, and she had to be interviewed by all these people, and she ended up winning the scholarship. And when it was over, she said to me, she goes, Mom, you remember how you used to make me shake somebody's hand and look them in the eye? I said, yeah. And then she got quiet, and she just said, thanks. So it pays off. All right. Finally, let them see delayed gratification. All right. And this is if you're in business for yourself, there are times when you have a lot of money coming in, there's a lot of cash flow, and there's times when you don't have a lot of cash flow. It is okay to tell your kids, you know what, we just can't do that right now. We just can't afford that right now. Cash flow is low. You know why? It's important to tell your kids this, because that's what their life's going to be like. They're not going to have this endless stream of cash for everything they want all the time. That's not real life. So let your kids know that you're not worried about it, but you need to let them know cash is tight right now. We can't do that right now. All right? And that's okay. All right? And this is another thing that is so important. Let your kids see you fight your way out of a mess. When Joe and I were building and we first got into business, like I said, we had all this medical debt and we could have given up, but we let our kids watch us fight our way out of that mess, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And what's really powerful about that is that I've watched our kids, and they had times, they're adults now, but they've had times when their money was very, very low. And I watched them fight. I watched them cut back. I watched them work more hours. I watched them fight their way out. And finally, and this is so important, if you're going to overcome the challenges and you really want to give your kids something that's going to carry them through life, let them experience what it means to win. Let them see you win. And I'm not talking about money here. I'm talking about having the courage and perseverance to keep getting up and fighting. The greatest gift you can bestow on your children is the example of persistence and optimism in the face of defeat, because all of us are going to encounter some sort of failure in some sort of way. And you want your kids to be the ones that can get back up. B.C. Forbes said, history has demonstrated that the most notable winners usually encountered heartbreaking obstacles before they triumphed. They won because they refused to become discouraged by their defeats. Use your business experiences to teach your children how to win at life, and you have done your job.
Wow, that's incredible. And I'm going to add one sentence. You teach them by showing them. We've had kids, now grandkids, on our ride in business, and we teach them more by action items than any books will ever teach them. So this has been Joe and Dawn Peachy, mostly Dawn. Thank you for being in our podcast 66. We will see you in our next one. Thanks.
Thanks for listening. New episodes will air each Tuesday and Thursday, so make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a 5-star review. The Sales Edge is sponsored by Peachy & Peachy Incorporated, a firm which provides training, consulting, and keynote presentations, empowering corporations and individuals to attract and retain quality clients for higher revenues and growth. Make more money in sales. Speak with Joe in person by calling 407-947-2590 or visit www.peachyandpeachy.com. Spelled PICIAND, PICI.com.